Voyce Durling-Jones Sensei is a bicultural blend of Celtic and Native American heritages. She carries the sacred pipe and is a sun dancer. She also answers to the call of the bagpipes. She considers herself a compassionate feminist as a mother of 5 and a grandmother of 5 with deep spiritual beliefs. She honors life in its myriad forms and persons. Voyce Sensei is a social democrat who loves bees, books, music, and ceremony. A warrior for peace, for saving the bees, and for this unique and beautiful planet and our divine mother, the cosmos. She is founder of the Hoshindo Society of the Americas, a nonprofit whose primary initiatives are the Hoshindo Healing Arts Institute and the Bee Corps based in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Welcome all of our listeners, the Praising Earth community, on this beautiful day that I get to sit with one of our beloved grandmothers who actually sits on our Basket of Seeds Grandmothers Alliance, a circle of elders, wisdom keepers, healers from around the world. And it is such an honor to be able to sit with you today, Voyce Durling-Jones Sensei, who many of our community have had the opportunity to get to know as you've sat in circle with us as an honored elder. You've come to the women's circle song carrier gatherings, and I've received healings from you, and it's just been a wonderful relationship for so many years, and I want to welcome you here today.
Thank you, Mari. And I recall that it was sound that brought us together. It was your singing Shagin at the Japanese festival that absolutely was like an arrow into the heart.
Oh,
you.
Thank you.
I thought, I have to study this. I have to learn about this young woman.
Yes.
And that's how we began.
And we were brought together in the sound, and you are a sound keeper, a song carrier, someone who carries wisdom of sound. And our community is very much about that rewilding the human heart through those traditions of song and story and ritual. So in the way that we like to start these Praising Earth Wisdom Keeper podcasts, I want to invite you to bring our listeners into their heart space by offering a song or a chant that you feel in your heart today.
Oh, it's my honor. Uspagon, nitawe magon. Uspagon, nitawe magon. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, 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 hey. We goes nitawe magon. We goes nitawe magon. Hey, 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 oh, yeah, hey,
Thank you so much, Voice, for that awakening of the heart. I'm so touched and always reminded how these ancestral songs in the earth languages help us remember who we are and help our heart to enliven just by the sounds. Would you share with us what that song is for?
Well, I'm wind clan, and it's about the wind, but it's a sacred pipe song. And so it's always used when you bring out the pipe. And I've done my pipe fast many years ago, and where you fast for 4 days and nights, come out the 5th morning, no food or water.
Yes.
And you're basically combining that with seeking a vision to go with that pipe, and that's what I did.
Oh.
And so that was the song that I was given, and from the elder that assisted me, coming each morning and each evening to make sure I was, still doing all right. And one thing I found really interesting with this was the 4th day I was really suffering. No food, no water, and I start trying to bargain with the spirits. Well, what if I can't finish this today? All of this sacrifice it's what do I have to do? And they said, well, it's not a competition. This voice said, it's not a competition. You'll have to come back and do it again. And so I said, okay, I'm thinking about this. And one of the few women pipe carriers that I had met up in Canada where this occurred came by that afternoon herself just to check on me. And she asked how I was doing, and we were comparing stories and about her experience. And she said, well, I'll tell you what I was told to do, and I think it might be helpful to you. She said, when you feel like you can't go on, place your mouth face down, get on your, like a total prostration, onto Mother Earth, and breathe in with her. And whatever moisture is there, you have the heartbeat of the mother, and the moisture is coming through, and that can sustain you. And so she came by around 4 p.m, so we did that together, and then I did it later in the day, as evening was approaching. And that was what really helped me to get through it. And the interesting thing with doing long fasts like this, you have to earn the pipe. And normally it's not earned. You can carry hold a pipe for many years. And they prefer that you do that. And once you're 45, then you can then do your pipe fast if you're called to do it. But it's usually kind of after you're over your main responsibilities as mother or daughter or whatever. So you're able to then begin the work with the pipe because it's a healing pipe. And so it was that night when, I was nauseous, I was exhausted. All I could do was hold my pipe to my breast, filled with sweet grass and sage, and just try to stay awake, because in the pipe fast you're usually keeping a vigil at night, sort of like the old knights of old,
Yes.
And in the daytime you stay awake, and in the daytime you sleep, in the night you stay awake, and so that's what happened that night, and then I drifted off to sleep, obviously. And I woke up hearing a noise behind me and thinking there was a light there. And I said, hello? And there was no answer. And there was another sound. And then I said, hello again. And then they got quiet. And I thought, oh, maybe it's a bear. I'm in bear country. And so I didn't say any more. But then, I had sort of pulled up on one elbow and then the other to kind of look to the side behind me, because it was behind me. But I had my eyes closed while I was doing it, and when I went back into a prone position and I opened my eyes, there was this whole column of light coming through the top of this lodge. And And it was like, on a stage in a theater where you have a spotlight and you see dust motes and things. That's what I could see. It was just this light coming down. And at that moment, I was taken out into the cosmos. And that's when my vision occurred and everything happened after that. The following morning, somewhere along the way, I was asleep. The following morning, the birds awakened me. I sat up. I felt as good as I did the first day. Oh. I had no residue of anything from the day before. I was totally energized and felt wonderful. And then so, it's like the sun is not quite up. It's just coming up. And I knew that the other women were going to come and help me, And so I had to change out of my fasting clothes and old moccasins and put on a new red dress for ceremony and new moccasins and so on. So gather all my things together. So I was ready when they came. And then you're taken to a sweat lodge, and then you first they give you water in the first round. The second round they give you something like berries. They'd ask what I wanted, and I said berries and honey, And then the third round they bless your pipe, and the fourth round they give you your medicine name for your pipe. And so that's how I became Walking Bear Woman.
Oh. What a beautiful story, Amu Voice. This is just touches my heart when, all these years I've been sitting with grandmothers and there's a gift you carry of telling those stories. And it's in those stories that help us to remember and learn how to be, how to live life. And I know that you have lived a life of ceremony. You have lived a life traveling the world and engaging and immersing yourself in many cultures. You also are quite a healer. And I know a lot of people are coming from far and wide to come and receive your healings. And for those of our listeners that, are getting to know you beyond the prayers that you've had with our community, the question moving in my heart is, what is it that is enlivening your life force daily? What is it that is aligning your gifts with a great purpose that you have on this earth? If you could share with us a little bit of an insight into your life, how it is currently, and what you are doing to enliven your life force and use your gifts and your purpose.
Well, at this stage, I've just turned 84. And so when you pass that and enter into the eighth decade of your life, you have no idea, how much time left there is. It could be tomorrow for any of us, but you definitely feel the age process, as you're reaching that stage. And so there are things that you want to complete, and one of the things I'd like to say is if there are ideas, creations, hopes, things that one has, try to do them each day, as best you can, working toward your goal, if you can stay focused in that way. And so with my work, one of the things that really keeps me focused is my work with the honeybees. I'm a Hoshindo Sensei, and I've taught others how to work with the bees in a very sacred manner. And so we're the keepers and guardians of the bees. Every Hoshin practitioner has to be a guardian and keeper of the bees, which means you must be an organic beekeeper. And you, with that, you have a responsibility each day with meditation. And so we have a song in Hoshin. We have a process of meditation where we also ask forgiveness for having to take the life of a bee. We ask this of Grandmother Bee Spirit. And we do prostrations, in humility, in great humility, because we take on the karmic debt, not our patients. And so it's important that we are thinking about all of life in these meditations. So before we get into, first we're in a quiet space, and then we go into basically saying out loud, what we have to do, asking forgiveness, and then asking for blessings and well-being for all life on the planet and all of our family, extended family, and vowing that we will be keepers and guardians of the bees as long as we are able. And so it's the bees who have enabled me, I believe, to reach this age. I had a near-death experience, in 1994, which led me to Hoshin eventually. But that, I always joke about that and say, well, first they had to kill me to get my attention. But they certainly got my attention, and going to the other side and being sent back and told, being told that it was not my time. And then for several weeks, I just felt like I was walking through walls. I was still not back in my body. And then I have a call to present a paper at the International Bar Association in Melbourne, Australia. And I thought, well, I wonder if I could make this trip, because I was still in that space, And so I ended up going. And then that's, I had a standing invitation from a Zen temple in Japan. And I thought, well, this could be my last time to see Japan. So I should do it while I can. I'm in that part of the world. And so that's what I did. I stepped off the train and slipped on a wet platform that I didn't know was ceramic, and it had been raining, and re-injured the knee that I'd also injured with the fall with my heart attack. And to make a long story short, the next day from the monastery, they took me to see a Hoshin master, a sensei, and she eventually became my teacher. Within 2 months, I was back in Japan.
Oh, my goodness.
And stayed there for 2 years.
And what I understand is you're one of the only Hoshindo masters in this continent.
I'm the only Hoshindo Sensei in the Western world.
In the Western world.
Uh-huh.
And what does that look like? Wow. How do you work with the bees? You've told us how you relate to them and the spiritual practice, but what is it about the bees?
Well, first of all, the practice itself is based on East Asian medicine. Bee venom therapy came before acupuncture. That's how, when it began to be in China, they used bees, and that's how they developed their system, the ancient Taoist. And then once they had metal, they could make the needles to imitate the bee, even the moxa on top, to heat that needle up, just like a sting kind of thing.
Yes.
And of course they went their way and developed many things, and Hoshin kept developing. And eventually, Japanese had sent, many entourages and official visits and opened diplomatic relations with China. And they were there at the height of Chinese civilization during the Tang and Sung dynasties. And so when the Khans invaded and the Great Wall was breached, the Japanese went home as quickly as possible, taking their healers, the monks, the people who had learned to make swords, tea. They had the whole treasure of that civilization in the palms, and they took it back to Japan and they refined it, as they're so good at doing. And so they refined bee venom therapy into Hoshindo, the way of the bee. So there's a whole system, but it's based on East Asian medicine as far as the technique and the protocols for using the bee.
Wow.
And so, each day, we have to... with the bees, they're wrapped and a bow is tied and it's handed to the patient after the bee is used, 1 to 5, 6, 7 bees. They take that so that they can show their gratitude for the sacrifice of the bees, for their well-being. And the bees and the bee medicine are phenomenal in healing so many modern diseases and old ones. Wow. 90% of my patients are Lyme patients.
Oh, wow.
and most of them go into recovery. You know, if they have the stamina and the desire to see it through.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some people can't always do that. They give up before, and sometimes just as they're about to go across the threshold to recovery. That's a whole different story. But it can take, 18 to 36 months.
Oh, wow.
You know, but what other alternatives does one have, because they've tried everything at that point.
Oh, wow.
And so with the bees, with my own situation with the heart condition, I never took medication after that. After that attack, I never had a stent, nothing. Mm. I have scar tissue on the valve, and that causes every now and then a little bit of an irregular heartbeat. Mm-hmm. But I can live with that. Mm-hmm. I prefer not to have that apparatus in my body. And I felt once I was in Japan and started working with the bees, I started getting better and better, mm-hmm. And so the bees have sustained me all these years.
Wow.
So I'm very grateful, and only too happy to do whatever I can to honor the bee. And I formed the Bee Corps, which is part of our nonprofit, in order to help bring awareness to the importance of the bees. Because I'm sure people have heard, that Einstein said this or that, but what he said was important because, and it's now all over the planet, everyone understands that without the bees, we will, if they die, we will follow them within a matter of a few years because they supply 70 to 75% of all of the foods we eat and the nuts. So our protein and vegetables and fruits. Mm-hmm. And we can't really live on wild grasses, and if we could find wild rice, we can't sustain ourselves that way. Yeah. And so this means the animals also will not have the food they need. Yeah. They won't have alfalfa. They won't be able to go into the forest, and because all the pollinators they're almost like on a schedule for oblivion within the next half century, if not sooner. But so these are things that. Nature is what has sustained me. Mm-hmm. We have to have sacred spaces, holy places where we can go and basically sit in nature. And, we can have sound, but we need holy silence. We have to have that silence there so that we can hear what the spirits are saying to us. Yeah. All of the ancestors... there has to be those quiet times. Mm-hmm. And so one thing I would always suggest is that we allow ourselves some private time every day, even if it's 30 minutes, where you can just get away from it. And, I know you go out into nature, your husband Tim goes out into nature, and we all feel so much better because of all of the negative ions. Yeah. It's like... what happens with all the patterns in nature is like, here lightning is so important, and all the thunder beings, meaning all the pollinators and the winds and the way they travel, especially in the high mountain areas like we have here. And so, and under ideal, conditions, we have a lot of rain and we'll get snow like we did this year, thank goodness, but that pattern starts moving, in the summer, and it goes down the mountain ranges, down into the Amazon basin by February, which brings the rainy season in the south. And one of the important things that is causing all this to happen is natural uranium in the mountains. Think about that. We're taking uranium out of all these mountains in the West. So what's going to happen to our weather patterns? The ancestors all over the world, all of the first peoples, knew all of these things. We all are tribal people. Those are our roots, no matter where in the world you came from. Right. And so our ancestors knew all these things, and they certainly knew it here in the Southwest. And so what happens is that if 50% of our positive and negative ions is coming from uranium, okay, and the other 50% is coming from the sun, the sunlight, then what happens, if we don't have the uranium?
Wow.
And so right now we should stop all uranium mining in the West. And many of the tribes, were kind of tricked into opening up their lands for the extraction of uranium. And then when they realized what was happening and tried to close it, it's been a long, long battle, And so we have to, as individuals, we have to learn to simplify and to have what they call, the whole concept of wabi-sabi in Japan is it's almost like holy poverty. In other words, it's only what you actually need, and simplifying your life and having a little more community and so on. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to do that, because we're all guilty of, clutter and having too many things. I'm the world's worst. I probably have things from when I was 5, Right. I'm even carrying 1914 velvets from my great aunts.
Yes, we are still human, living in this finite world with beautiful material things. Yes, and yet,
this tonsu here, my great aunt Georgie brought back from China.
Because she could
before World War I.
Right.
So it's like, and here I am carrying it on my back from place to place.
See. Well, see, Amu, you've lived a life of, in some sense, what people are calling an old story, right? And what we are sensing in communities and elders coming together saying, we're in a space in between the stories almost, and we have choices to make. And there are, it can be overwhelming. I'm hearing all of the things that you're speaking, such wisdom. If only the higher ups would really hear that stuff and listen to it and act from that place. And that's why I've found, for me, sitting with the elders, being in a place of listening and in prayerful place, the way that still we still have the gift of the indigenous elders who are living lives of prayer and listening and are working on behalf of all life, that life will thrive. So as we're in this in-between place, and I mean, I get anxious almost every day thinking about what's going to be left for our children. Even 30 years ago, in my short life, able to drink from the rivers and swim, and now I'm afraid to put my child in a river sometimes. I don't know where that water is tainted with the toxins and that kind of thing. So I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, what do we do? I know you said, take time to be in silence, take time to slow down and simplify and all these kinds of things. Can you glimpse the next story? Is there a next story coming? In all of your years of life, as you wake up with your purpose, and I see that you're, using those gifts to provide healing, so that those of us who have been so, taken by illness or caught off balance are putting things back into balance. But that, I think you've already said it probably, that's that sense of community, and that we are living together on this earth. And we're finding in our own community of Praising Earth that the simplicity of gathering in community and going past the mind, past all of the figures and percentages of how high the temperature of the earth is and what we need to do with our hands, that if our hearts are aligned and we can begin to listen in a community, that together maybe we'll know how to act, how to move in this next story that's not even really here yet. We're sort of in between.
Well, there's this whole concept, with the sun dance.
Yes.
It's you are sacrificing again with no food or water and dancing in place from sunup to sundown. And what you are hoping for is to be able to see the space between the veils of the world. Okay, those on the other side and those on our side. Okay.
Okay.
The living and the dead, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But you're trying to communicate with those who've gone before you and to get whatever wisdom might come from that. And I had an incident in 1993 after a Sundance in Canada. Had to drive over to Saskatchewan in the middle, right after the Sundance with my daughter, a friend, and her friend, and another friend of mine who had not Sundance, but she was driving. I was tired. So we were talking about a number of things, keeping each other awake, and the younger people were asleep in the back seat. And so we're talking, sharing stories, about the different animal concepts and totems, because she came from British Columbia and she was a hereditary chief, a woman. And so we talked about, this type of thing, the turtle, the eagle, the bear. I talked about some of the southern things too, with the panther. And, it was, and even we discussed African ideas, and we talked about, just the life of an elephant, all of these things. And suddenly, it's about like 1 o'clock in the morning, she brings the car to a stop and she said, "Voice." And I said, "What? What's wrong?" She said, "Open your door and step out and look at the sky." And so I stepped outside and looked up at the sky, and at the upper horizon, like a band across a child's room, that you might have pictures, was like a pale gray background with darker figures. And there I saw the turtle, the bear, the panther, even the elephant, all of these figures going around. And above that, going up into the dome of the cosmos, is this huge eagle with its arms enclosing that area. And then at the top of that was what appeared to be a feminine figure seated in a chair, a throne, at the apex, right at the top of the sky. And I'm stunned, and I said, "You didn't Sundance." "I did, but I feel like I'm hallucinating." And she said, "No, you're not, but let's wake up."
Let's get some witnesses.
Yes, we need witnesses. And I said, "Yes, we do, so let's have them look." And they verified it was still there. It wasn't going anywhere. Verified. And then they, of course, went back to sleep, Meanwhile, we're like electrified. And I said to her, if we ever had any doubt in our minds that we were alone in this universe, this is our proof that the universe is listening to us. And that changed my whole concept about so many things. And I began to, read more with all of the new physics and various things. And I began to think, well, these physicists are beginning to understand what the indigenous have always known, and they're putting it into scientific terms, which is all well and good. But the whole meaning is we have to think about what we're saying every day, okay? Because when they talk about manifestation and things like that, we are manifesting from what we are thinking, because the universe is showing us loud and clear. So if we're constantly thinking of death and disaster and war and all of these things, of course, we're going to manifest that, And I don't mean that we have to be like the ostrich with our head down in the sand. We have to work at the same time. For instance, this young movement, the Sunset Movement, with all the young people around the world right now, I want to invite everyone in September to, right now, go online and see what you can do to help, because they're calling for a world strike, a global strike in September. And what that strike will do is they're asking labor unions, governments, hospital, everyone, we just don't do anything that day. You know, we pray.
Yeah.
We do whatever we feel we should
Yeah.
be doing at that time. But that is the only way we're going to get the attention of those who are on the darker side of reality,
Yes.
it seems.
Yes.
And so we're thinking about the next generations. You know, I can't face my grandchildren, but I have 5 grandchildren. I have to help make the world better for them. You have to help make the world better for your young children.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we have to be concerned. And so it's my generation and your generation and the younger ones that are leading the way right now.
Wow.
It's up to our generations to make those changes. Wow. And so that's done by, you know, civil disobedience in that sense of a world strike. Because unless we have millions and millions of people doing this, no one pays attention.
Yeah.
You know, and it's always worked when you get like minds all coming together. And this is the most important problem in this century right now is all of the issues related to climate. You know, when there are no negative ions, what do? Right? No rain, no snow, and then everyone knows all of these things. But this is the way we're going to change it. It's the only way I can see right at this moment. There are, of course, people working on all levels, from the lowest to the highest level, trying to make good changes and save this planet and the future generations. But that is truly what is at stake. It is our future, and it's the future of the Earth. And so if the cosmos is listening, okay, and there's a woman at the top, feminine, let's say she's, you know, masculine, feminine, you know, it's no gender.
Yeah.
It's that creative principle that's involved. And so if that is the situation, that I was given a message, that was 1993, you know, and I think back and I think, why didn't I do more then? Why didn't I just really dive into it, you know? And it's like life goes on and so on. But right now, we all have to really be aware of what's happening, because the Earth, we have the only oceans and seas in the galaxy as far as we know. Yeah. The other planets don't. This is an incredible being. And so it's our Mother Earth, and our grandmother is the cosmos. Oh. Okay? So it's like the cosmos, basically out of all of that. Yeah. I mean, the Chinese had the idea, you know, the ancient Taoist. So the Tao is considered the mother of the universe, the mother of the universe. And from that came the 10,000 things, the yin and the yang, all life. And so that came from that mysterious unknown in the cosmos. So suppose we are a cell in the cosmic and the earth psyches. Yeah. Cells in those bodies. You know, it's like cells inside us who don't have anything to do with our unconscious or anything else. They're just doing their little job. What if we're just doing our little job? You know, well, we need to do a better job.
Is everyone listening to Grandma here? She is saying it like it is, and I love that. Fierce. Like sometimes I hear Grandma say, "I'm going to say it like a grandma," and it's truly, I'm sitting in the presence, you know, face to face with Amu Voice here, and there's an energy coming from her heart that is from a life fully lived, a life well lived, and a life that has suffered, that has been in full joy and bliss, visions, and all these things that you're bringing to us today. And I think everyone listening can feel this energy coming from Amu Voice, and we all have that capacity. I love how you brought to our attention that just with our thoughts, that we are creating our reality. And then this is where it begins. There's an old Tibetan saying that from that sphere of light and from that intention in the heart arises the seed syllable, and from the seed syllable arises the mandala, and from the mandala arises the being. And so we do have, every morning when we wake up, that choice to visualize a beautiful world that our children and our children's children will live in. And that's what we are uplifting here in our community. And we are so blessed to have grandmothers coming from many places to drop a pearl of wisdom just at that right moment. I feel that we are just in a critical time here and the thunder beings are saying yes to this. The rain is beginning to gather together with those like-minded souls that say we can make a difference here. We do have choice. And we want to do this because we want life to thrive and continue on this earth. And I know humanity is but one of the little baby beings of all the beings that have existed, speaking of our waters, who are the eldest of the eldest.
Well, these waters holding the memories of everything, which is, another thought. What are we putting into our water now that is causing them to be distracted, to be demented, look at all of the poisons that are coming into everyone. So it's like it has to be transmuted. And singing with the waters is really crucial. And it's the same with the wind, the thunder beings, even I think about, part of my tradition is that, my heritage is the Celtic heritage also, so that's, the Irish, the Scots, the Welsh, all in that area. Even the Vikings coming in, raiding all those coasts and everything. But a lot of people don't know the history that in the early days in Europe, that when the Celts came into Europe, they came in equal, the men and the women. They were egalitarian. When they were married, the men gave the woman a fine horse, very fine weapons, a plowshare, and they did everything together. They went to war together, they plowed the fields together, and they raised their children together. And so, others came after that, and those things were destroyed to a certain extent. But just, that's important for us to remember the importance of that feminine warrior spirit. You have to have that, but you also, everyone who has been in any tradition understands that there are different aspects to it. There is the warrior aspect. There is the one who goes into the fields. There are so many different levels, and we all will experience some of this all of our lives. And then it just kind of comes at us, like, okay, this is what you need to do. And so listen to that voice when it comes, and follow that. I have always followed my dreams, and I've tried as best I could, to keep it in balance. We all fail in many ways. We've all had our failures. I've had my failures. I'm sure I'll have more. But the thing is, as you are doing all of these things, you're learning so much. And so keep educating yourself with your own inner wisdom. And it's important to not just be on the computer or all these things. You have to have that quiet space too. Read a book. We've forgotten how to read books. I was talking with my grandson recently, who's visiting, and he's like all into reading now. He's always been that way. He's loved to read. And and it's so wonderful to be sitting in the room, and on the other side, you have a grandchild who's reading, and you're reading something else, and then you can talk about it. And he once asked me, he said, "Amo, have you read all these books you have?" And I said, "Well, I've read most of them. There's still a few I haven't, been able to complete." And I said, "And some I've almost forgotten. I've read them so long ago, but I can't let go of my books." Wow. And so it's important because there will be thoughts that come through when you can read it on the page and sitting in a quiet space and select something that really wants to go right into your hands. And that is another way to really gather the wisdom from people who have done everything in the world, been extremely creative, have been able to experience many things.
Yes.
I'm so grateful that when I was born, between the great wars, so to speak, I can remember traveling by train, by ship, by all these things, which we don't do so much anymore. When you talk about traveling by ship, people are thinking about a cruise to the Caribbean, not going from New York to Paris, across the Atlantic or going across the Pacific. And it's like, those are important milestones in one's life because, you're growing up.
Yeah.
And everyone should have that opportunity. And it's harder and harder to do that. But if you have a community, if you can pull things together, then it's easier to do those things, But it begins, first of all, within your own family.
Yeah.
And then it's your extended family, and then it's your community and so on. So we all fall into one of those categories. And so some of us are very reclusive. Some of us are very gregarious, and can go out and do everything. And there's, those of us who just want to sit and pray. All of those things are needed. I used to think, I think maybe in my old age, what I need to do is become a contemplative and just sit and pray all the time. And then, of course, I had experience with the Benedictines years ago, and I used to take my children to the monastery, and they'd play in the fields, and I'd be listening to Gregorian chant, which I loved, and working in the herb garden, and I learned stained glass from Sister Prisca, and so it was like, that was an important part of my life, to see how those women lived, and the vow of silence. And then, but they could sing every hour. It was work and pray. And so they would sing every hour. And when my youngest son, Tim, was born, Sister Prisca asked if she could come to attend the labor and the birth, because they were studying all about women at the monastery. And these are all celibate women. And so she came out in a snowstorm when I went into labor for my son. And was there, right through the whole thing. And then in the end, asked if she, in the delivery room, as he was being born and everything, and quieted down for 5 minutes, could I sing the morning prayers? And she did Gregorian chant in the delivery room. And just the staff there were just mesmerized. They'd never had anything like that happen in the delivery room, And she was amazing.
Wow.
Just a little round person.
Wow.
Who was so loving. And so it's all about, we all have experiences like these. We could all think of something in our lives that turned a page, that gave you another insight into the variety and the beauties of life. Because everyone's not alike, thank God, And so it's like, we just want to be able to learn as much as we can from any person who we feel has something to tell us or to gift to us or to help us to understand.
Yes.
I've been lucky in my life to have elders before me that, helped me and along the way.
Wow.
And so, I wish that for all of us. And sometimes it may not be your near relative. It may be someone else that has this influence.
Yes.
It could just be a stranger, a chance meeting. On a train, maybe not a train anymore, but I'm remembering something. But it's like with chance meetings.
Yes.
Those people that bring something to you in that way, whether it's a song, it's a poem, poetry is so important. All of these things enrich your life, and they give you another thing to know and to internalize into your heart and into your spirit, and to be able to, basically see between the veils.
Wow.
Because life it's so mysterious. And there was some, I think Dr. John Jeans, maybe in 1930, I remember something about his idea at that time. Now, this is 1930. I didn't read it then, of course, but in retrospect, what he was saying is, it is appearing that life is not so mechanical as we once thought it was, but that it seems more like a great thought. And, when I thought about that recently, I thought, that's exactly what, the universe is telling us, the cosmos, the cosmic mother, the divine mother is telling us these things. It is a great thought. So always with the thinking, we catch ourselves saying negative things and we repeat them to ourselves. I mean, we repeat the same thoughts over and over and over again. And I have to catch myself, why did I think that? Why did I say that to myself? And it's like we all have to be aware of what we're saying. So the concept of affirmations is not completely off base because it's like you want to affirm something, so you need to say it until you really understand it. And because, as they say recently, someone said, if you hear a lie repeated for 1,000 times, you believe it. And so look at all the lies we're being given. And if we keep listening to them, they're going to manifest in our lives in that sense of like we'll lose our way. It's like instead of being in a labyrinth, being able to go in and then come back out, we're in a maze and we can't find our way
out.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you, Voice. This has been so enjoyable, so nourishing. I'm sure our community is soaking this up like the rains falling. And I have to connect those rains to this conversation and the energy that comes from your heart, Voice, because that's how it works. This gives life. Your words, your wisdom, just your sharing of your heart. I think we could sit here for weeks on end and listen to your stories, and maybe we'll get a chance to do that more. I already feel there needs to be more conversation here with you, and thank you to these rains that are blessing this conversation, and will go out to our community, and just wish you so many blessings on your life, Voice, and thank you for blessing our community with your presence, for all the people that you are helping, for the earth and the waters and the bees. Thank you for being connected to our family. And I just want to close us up here. I think we have 5 minutes left. There's 2 things I want to ask you. And one is how to connect with you, Voyce Durling-Jones Sensei. Is there a website? And are there any gatherings or events that you would like us to know about? And then we're going to close with a song.
Prayer. All right. I have a website for the Hoshindo Healing Arts Institute.org. That tells you all about Hoshin. And then I founded the Hoshindo Society of the Americas, which certifies our practitioners and has, it's one of our projects, and also the B Corps. And it's the B Corps, CORPS.org. And that will, it's free membership, and someone could go on there just to learn all about the bees and what we can do to help the bees. And shortly we'll have more information too about the September event with the global strike. We're just trying to help the honeybees and all the pollinators, because I was so happy yesterday to look out the window from the sunroom and see on some of the wildflowers monarch butterflies. And I've seen more wildflowers that I haven't seen before here in New Mexico this year. They've never come up before. The bees are just so happy right now. And, in relation to that, the most devastating thing to the bees right now and to us is glyphosate. and that's in Roundup, all the Roundup Ready seeds. And it goes down into the water table, then it goes up into the sky, comes down in the rain. And I believe it's, there have been cases recently where, major pesticide companies have been sued and lost. And so everyone has to understand that not only is it killing the bees, but it's killing us. We're breathing that in. And so if any of your neighbors don't understand this, go on the website and so that you have a little more information and you can talk to them, because it's going to be person to person, because some people just don't know. So that's why we formed the Bee Corps and the site, so that we could just educate. We're not trying to do anything except try to save the bees and the other pollinators, and to help the earthworms, to help the water, and to talk to the waters, sing to the waters. I'm so proud of you, Muddy, and everything that you've done in relation to the medicine song carriers. All of this is so important, and all the poetry from Tim, and speaking out. All of this with your organization is really important for all of nature. And that means us, okay? Whether we are cell or standing here as human beings, we're very lucky to have been born as human in this life. And with that comes a responsibility, because we're able to speak. The other animals, we're not like St. Francis, where we can understand everything they're saying, but they're going extinct daily. And so we know all of these things, but it's like we have to integrate them into how, in our way, our own small way, we will be able to help life to be sustained.
That's right.
And for the next generations.
That's right. Oh, thank you so much. And we're going to close this moment together here, and I'm going to ask you, Voyce, to offer a final blessing for our community in whatever way that comes through you.
Well, I'd like to bring in the bee, and we're in this song, you ask Grandmother Bee Spirit, please come and help us. And she answers, I'm coming, I'm coming. Amu pieso kapepet quid, amu pieso kapepet quid, amu piesu kapepe the quid, amu piesu kapepe the quid. Honor all the sweetness in life.